From the PRN studios at Charlotte Motor Speedway, this is Racer's Odds.
Side by side, Keselowski works to the inside.
The crowd is roaring. Chase Elliott is in the lead.
Harvick into 11, right on his bumper.
Now, here are Jeff Hammond, Steve Mackinnon, and Brad Gilley.
And welcome once again to another fun edition of Racer's Odds. This is the show where we tell you how to gamble on NASCAR. My name is Brad Gilley. My co-hosts, of course, are two-time NASCAR Cup Series championship-winning crew chief, Hollywood Jeff Hammond, and from VSiN's Point Spread Weekly, Steve Mackinnon. And coming up this week, we are headed to the 2-mile Auto Club Speedway of Southern California, a track that is very bumpy, a track that is very racy, and a track that just eats up those Goodyear tires. It should be a pretty good one for sure. Coming off of a race weekend at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, where I think a lot of people saw some surprises, not just in the results of the race, with Joey Logano going back-to-back and a guy like Matt DiBenedetto with a great runner-up finish for Wood Brothers Racing, but we also saw a couple of teams step up, and that would be Team Penske and Hendrick Motorsports. All throughout the race, both of those organizations racing well within the top 10. Will that continue this week? We go to a track that's a half mile longer, and we go to a track that wears out tires much, much more. So, crew chief, Hollywood Jeff Hammond, let's start with you as we look ahead to Auto Club Speedway of Southern California. What are you looking at?
What I'm looking at right now, you already mentioned it, the racetrack is very rough. You can move around on this racetrack, but tires will have give up. Getting your car on a long run is going to be very important, a little bit like what we saw this past weekend at Las Vegas. And when you start looking at what's important now here, believe it or not, qualifying up front seems to pay big dividends. Guys who qualify up front seem like they stay there all day long. They have top 10 finishes. In the end, guys who are up there inside the top 5 a lot of times go to victory lane like a Kyle Busch or somebody, like even Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. These guys are the ones you got to be looking for. They're going to be tough this weekend. But from last weekend, let's take a good look at the bow ties. If you feel good about Chase Elliott, bet Chase Elliott because I believe they're back. I believe they're going to be fast once again here at Auto Club Speedway. It will be a fun race.
All right, I do want to ask you, Jeff, it's real easy to look at one race at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and let's kick out the season opening Daytona 500 just simply because Daytona is a much different animal than what we see most of the season. But a lot of people are quick to say exactly what you just said. Now, I might lean more toward the cautious side and say to myself, was Las Vegas an anomaly? Should we expect the Toyotas to be as bad as they were and the Chevys to be as good as they were? Or is this truly the real deal?
It's about taking advantage of the situation right now, Brad. And I really believe the Chevrolets are for real. When you look at the overall results from Las Vegas, out of the top 10 finishers, 6 of them were Chevrolets. But the main thing is that's where they raced all day long. And the majority of them were inside the top 10. You race inside the top 10, you're the real deal. And fortunately for them, I believe it shows promise because that was a real tough tire to hook the car up with. I think when they get to Auto Club Speedway, they'll be even better.
All right, Steve Mackinnon from Point Spread Weekly. We've been going to Auto Club Speedway for more than 2 decades now, and this is a track that has produced some pretty wild races here recently and some thrilling finishes as well. When you start to grade a track like Auto Club Speedway, where does this rank in your handicapability rankings?
Well, this is great news for everybody out there because this is the only track on the circuit to which I give a grade of A+ to. Obviously, the projections have met the finishes pretty well, and that's how I give that grade out. In the last 3 races, there's only been 5 racers who did not finish a race. So your chances of being taken out, or your driver being taken out in some sort of mishap or a manufacturing or malfunction, they're not very good here. Projected who's running well, who does well in qualifying and practice, and you should do pretty well.
All right, well, I want to ask you about mishaps and everything because last week I was standing there on pit road at Las Vegas Motor Speedway almost counting my money for the predictions that we were making last week in our picks of the week right up until a late race caution changed everything for pretty much all of us here. So when it comes to Auto Club Speedway of Southern California, the chances for late race cautions and all of that, how does that affect maybe the way someone needs to handicap and think about this race?
Well, like I said, you won't run into that type of thing here as often. Actually, the way things worked out last week with the late cautions, that's hard to predict. I mean, any bettor is going to struggle with something like that. Some people are on the benefiting end of it. Some people didn't benefit from it. So here, you won't have that type of situation as often. the things that decide the race here, typically that maybe don't reflect how a particular driver does throughout the race, or if they make maybe a late gamble on a pit stop, maybe they go 2 tires, maybe they decide to stay out, maybe they gamble on fuel, those type of things. If you lose on that, again, very tough to predict, but usually Auto Club Speedway is a pretty straightforward track as far as handicapping goes.
All right, well, that sounds good. Looking forward to then seeing what some of our predictions are this week as we get you ready for what's going to happen here at Auto Club Speedway. We're going to lay out some of the odds that are available here early in the week. All of these come from the Westgate Superbook in Las Vegas, Nevada, and these are typically the odds that you're going to find at most books when it comes to wagering on NASCAR. Now, with that being said, the odds will change as the week goes on. Someone might come in and bet a lot of money on last week's winner, Joey Logano, for example. That is going to sway the direction of the odds. They're also going to change after practice sessions, after qualifying, after what we see what these cars are doing on the racetrack. So we're giving you the early week opening odds. That's going to give you plenty of time to think about what you might be looking toward as we head to Auto Club Speedway of Southern California. And I would encourage you to check out Point Spread Weekly, where Steve Makinen is the editor, and he has a simulation and a lot of other great things. And our website, racersodds.com, because we're going to be posting those odds as they come out or a little bit deeper into the weekend as well. So, fellas, let's just start looking at the odds to win. And this is who the Westgate, who the Superbook is favoring right now, at least who they think might be some of the best drivers when it comes down to it this week. Kevin Harvick is the favorite, of course, the California driver. Kyle Busch is the defending winner. Joey Logano, we just saw him in victory lane at Vegas. Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Brad Keselowski, and Martin Truex Jr., all ranging from plus 400 to plus 800. And when you see the odds on the board here, the plus versus the fractional odds like 16 to 1, it's just a different version of looking at the same thing. Plus 400 means if you bet $100 on Kevin Harvick, he wins the race, you win your 100 back. Plus 400. 16 to 1 on Ryan Blaney, for example. You bet $100 on Ryan Blaney. He wins the race. You get your 100 back plus $1,600. So there's a lot of different ways you can win here. And Jeff Hammond, I'll start with you. When it comes to looking at it from the crew chief side of things, who do you think is going to be favored here to win?
Well, I think right now the Westgate's got it pretty close as far as, Kevin Harvick's concerned. He's run well at Daytona. Back that up with a really strong, fast race car at Las Vegas. This is a racetrack where he has won. It's been a while, all the way back to 2011, but this may wind up being another magic year for Rodney Childers and Kevin Harvick. So that's not a bad bet if you believe in Kevin Harvick, but I like some of the guys deeper in the field and some of the long shots. You mentioned one of them, believe it or not. I think Ryan Blaney is on fire in that number 12 Ford for Penske. I think he's got an excellent shot. Possibly, breaking through, getting his first win early in the year. That seems like Team Penske is always good the first half of the year. Sometimes they get better, but sometimes they drop off a little bit. So to see them come out of the box this strong early in the season, I like them. And if you got a sentimental favorite, go 25 to 1 on Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, look at that. Multi-time winner at his home track there at Auto Club Speedway. All right, Steve Makinen, as you're running your initial early week simulations, who are you looking at for Auto Club Speedway?
So at the top of this one, typically for this Auto Club 400, you don't want to stray too far from the favorites as far as projecting a winner. Just to show you what has happened in the last 2 years, Kyle Busch last year had a 148.5 rating. The year before that, Martin Truex had a 150 rating. The highest driver rating you get in NASCAR is 150. So that basically the last two winners have run almost perfect races here. So watch for the guy who dominates the pre-race weekend activities. Now, right now, I have the number one qualifying and practice rating going to Kyle Busch. So if that changes, he could drop a little on my simulation. But right now, I have him first because of that. So again, watch what happens in the pre-race activities this weekend, and then go from there as far as your handicapping goes.
Well, our defending winner, Kyle Busch, is not the most favored driver, at least in the opening odds for Auto Club Speedway. And quite honestly, Steve, Toyota's just had a bad race weekend at Las Vegas. Kyle Busch, along with Christopher Bell and Denny Hamlin, all had to start at the back due to penalties. And typically, we would expect to see those guys. What was that, Hammond?
Self-induced.
Self-induced. They were self-induced. But a lot of times, look, we got used to seeing them start at the back or mid-pack a lot last year and drive their way right up to the front. They didn't do that. Now, Kyle Busch is still very favored, but Denny Hamlin, for example, is sitting at 20-1 to win. Eric Jones, he's sitting at 40-1 to win. Martin Truex Jr., who actually probably had one of the best cars overall and definitely the best Toyota before he actually had a tire go down and got into the wall, he is still favored at 8-1. Does any of this surprise you, Steve, based on where they ran last week at Vegas?
Well, I tell you what, I don't think there's too many people out there crying for the Joe Gibbs team as far as their slow start goes. So I wouldn't be surprised if they get back on the horse this week and have a run. I mean, especially with the way Kyle Busch has run here, and obviously Martin Truex, the last two race winners here are from that team. So we'll see what happens. But you gotta like the way Chevy's going, and Penske's been strong here as well. So I think there's a good handful of maybe 5 or 6 guys that are really capable of winning this week.
You know, Jeff, when we go back and look at Las Vegas and we start trying to look ahead and see if that's going to help us with any of our handicapping of the race, I think to myself, great, Chevrolet looked fantastic, especially Hendrick Motorsports. Right. That's 4 cars that are up there. But on the same side, Toyota looked bad. So I also think to myself, well, if we're going to say, well, the Chevys are going to be that good, I got to think the Toyotas are going to be that good too, because they are going to their home track. And if they start moving up into the top 10, that's going to start to move some people out of the top 10 as well.
Well, I'm going to go back to what Steve said a little earlier. Look at who's doing what as far as qualifying and practice. But if you look at the last 10 races here, the guy who won the race has started inside the top 10 7 times. So you got to get yourself a top 10 starting position. As a matter of fact, the last 3 races, the guy sat on the pole, 2 of those times, and the other one, like Kyle Busch, he qualified 4th last year. So being fast right off the bat and getting a good qualifying run in is a great indicator of what the trend is going for that organization.
All right, so what I'm hearing, let's wait and see what happens in practice and qualifying, but I'm also wondering if at least early in the week with some opening odds, if we might be able to find some deals. When we come back here on Racers Odds, we're going to take a look at the head-to-head matchups. We're going to take a look at the group matchups. We're also going to take a look at a new bet that we're seeing now come out, and that would be a manufacturer versus manufacturer wager. That's right. You can take odds on whether or not Ford, Chevy, or a Toyota will be in victory lane. We'll talk about all of that and much more on Racers Odds.
You ask, we listen. Atlanta Motor Speedway celebrates its 60th anniversary in 2020 with a new spring race date, March 13th through the 15th, with new and enhanced camping and fan amenities, all backed by the perfect weather guarantee. Get 2 races for the price of 1 with the Xfinity Series and Gander RV and Outdoors Truck Series doubleheader on Saturday. Tickets for Sunday's Folds of Honor Quick Trip 500 start at just $49 and kids are only $10. Online at atlantamotorspeedway.com.
Bristol Motor Speedway is about family, moments, and memories. Here, traditions are made.
Here comes Jeff Gordon to take the lead.
And history comes to life.
Here comes Earnhardt. He hits Labonte. Labonte spins in turn 2.
Witness the next chapter of the story at the best short track in the world. Join us April 5th for the 60th running of the Food City 500.
Yeah, this is one of the biggest wins in my career.
Why is that?
It's Bristol, baby.
Attention homeowners. Do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? How about code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call my friends right now at Quick Cash Offer. They specialize in buying any home, no matter how ugly the situation. Turn that problem property into cash right now. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. They buy the ugliest houses with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there are no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. They're buying a few more houses in your neighborhood this month. So take advantage of this cash offer and call Quick Cash Offer now.
800-435-0833. 800-435-0833. That's 800-435-0833.
And now back to more Racers Odds.
Welcome back. We are getting you set for this Sunday's race at Auto Club Speedway of Southern California, 400 miles around the 2-mile oval. My name is Brad Gilley, my co-host from VSiN's Point Spread Weekly, Steve Makinen, and, of course, two-time championship-winning crew chief Jeff Hammond. And, Steve, before we get into some of the head-to-head matchups and the groupings and maybe talking about what manufacturer could win this race, give us some ideas of what we can look forward to as you're getting your simulations underway.
Well, I think there's going to be a few surprises if you pick up Point Spread Weekly this week, and you'll see maybe some guys that aren't typically on top of my simulations near the top. Kyle Larson is ranked number 2 right now. Brad Keselowski number 3. Those are typically higher finishes than I normally project them at. So potential sleepers for this week. Austin Dillon, top 10 in my simulation. Not normally seen in that type of range. You'll see I have a pick on him later as far as my best bet of the week. So definitely looking at him as a sleeper. Interesting track, though. Again, grade of A+. If you're going to dive into NASCAR handicapping using stats, this is the track to do it.
And very well said. And look, if you want to find some deals as well, this is a place also. Jeff Hammond, again, as we look at California Speedway and you take what you know and your knowledge and where we are right now, what else are you looking at?
I'm being very cautious, but at the same time, very cautiously optimistic when it comes to certain drivers and how they've been performing early in the season. And I believe that some of the changes that have gone on within different organizations, which we've all been looking at and wondering about, I'm really referring to Team Penske, for example. Did the crew chief swap get these guys remotivated? And right now, I believe it has. I believe it's lit a fire definitely under Joey Logano, as well as I like the Ryan Blaney, number 12. I mean, it just seems like he is on his game. He was there at Daytona. He was again there on Sunday at Las Vegas. And I think that, it hadn't been for a late caution, we may have had a different winner. And I think he's fired up and he still believes in his crew chief. I like that. And there's a couple other guys that you're kind of watching and seeing are starting to rise for the occasion. I don't think we can walk away and not touch on Ricky Stenhouse Jr. in a new environment, new manufacturer, and that organization right now is as excited as I've ever seen it. Brian Patty and he have been together, so it's not like these guys have got to learn one another. But for whatever reason, the Chevrolet Camaro is fitting them to a T. Talked to some of the members with that organization yesterday, and they are pumped up. They feel like the 37 of Ryan Preece and the 47 of Stenhouse, they've been on mark, and everybody is really pumped up over there for a little organization or a smaller organization. They're getting it done.
Boy, top 3 finish is going to get you pretty motivated for sure. All right, let's look at some head-to-head matchups for this race at Auto Club Speedway. And Steve Makinen, I'm going to start with you. When we look at head-to-head and plus-minus, for example, Kevin Harvick at minus 125, that would mean if you bet $125, you would win back $100 plus your original bet. Whereas Kyle Busch at plus 105, if you bet $100, you'd win your $100 plus 105. Now, Steve Makinen, it is not that often that we ever see Kyle Busch on the plus side of a head-to-head matchup.
You're right about that, and I certainly got to like something like that this week as I look at his chances to not only the way he dominated last year, but the way he kind of needs a good finish this year, and being the champion that he is. Coming to a track that he's been good at, that's a hard situation to bet against. That's a double whammy, if you will. So Harvick last week struggled with the long run speeds. So there's a lot of long runs at Auto Club Speedway. Will they be able to find that balance this week? I don't know. Maybe not risking the minus 125.
Interesting. Jeff Hammond. Now, Kyle Busch wasn't that great last week, but he is the defending winner and is very good at Auto Club Speedway, track where he picked up his first career victory, by the way. Joey Logano also at plus 105 and Brad Keselowski at plus 105 versus Kevin Harvick. Now, is Harvick that good, or we may be looking at 3 deals here?
I think you're looking at 3 deals myself, because I think that, Kevin may not be exactly where you want him. To Steve's point, he did get off a little bit, but I don't want anybody to lose sight of we're running the same tire we raced here a year ago. This is not a new combination, something like they had at Las Vegas. I believe that's where part of their problem began and ended. And a lot of the follow-up information I've gotten since Las Vegas is that if you had trouble, it reared its ugly head just like it did with Kevin, who would jump out there like he was going to fly away, and all of a sudden when it gave up, it fell really big time. I don't think you're going to see that this weekend when you go against him. He is a master of managing a racetrack like this. So you're going to have your hands full against him. And I want to point out one thing about Kyle Busch. Even though he won here a year ago and he is our defending champion, he did well at Homestead. Coming into Homestead, he wasn't doing so well. He's starting off right where he came into Homestead. I'm going to take Homestead off the page. Are they really where they need to be as an organization, that team particularly?
Interesting question. I want to ask you about another one too, Hammond, and that's Ryan Blaney. I know you're pretty high on Ryan Blaney, and in matchups right now, plus 130 over Kyle Larson, plus 130 over Chase Elliott. Last week, you were not willing to bet against the Chevy because it was unknown. Ryan Blaney in a Ford at plus 130 looks pretty darn good. Are you willing to go against a Chevy, though?
I am.
Oh.
I'm putting my money where my mouth is on this situation, too. I'm a little bit like Steve. That's where I'm looking, and I'm leaning toward it. Even though Kyle Larson has got some good numbers out there at Auto Club Speedway, I feel like that momentum right now and the fact that he's been denied 2 weeks in a row, it's going to charge him up. And I think he's driving with a new and rejuvenated desire this year. I think a lot of people are putting pressure on him because he knows he needs to perform that Team Penske car, and I believe he can handle that Chevrolet this weekend.
All right, Steve Mackinnon. Blaney's also plus 130 to Martin Truex Jr.'s minus 150. How about him, or is there anything else in the head-to-head matchups that you like?
I tell you what, I don't want to get it too overzealous here about Blaney this week because I'm a little concerned. As I read this odds sheet today, I got a little concerned about why Ryan Blaney is being placed the way he is. Sometimes you got to kind of maybe take a deeper look when you see some odds that you think are off. Okay.
Yeah.
Now we've talked about the Chevys that we like what we've seen out of them. Ryan Blaney's plus 130 to Chase Elliott. Obviously, Elliott came off a great week. He's in a Chevy. That leads me to believe he's an underdog to Kyle Larson. That leads me to believe that maybe Ed Salmons and Westgate like Chevy this week, and there's a particular reason for that. So you got to be careful in situations like that, I believe.
All right. So we'll take some of those and maybe wonder if there's a flag that we need to raise on that. But again, it is something that could be a good deal. Look, we're not just here to tell you about the bets to take. We're also here to tell you about maybe some places where you should watch out. Let's move forward to some group matchups as well. This is where 4 drivers are pitted against each other. Now, none of these drivers have to win the race, but in each group, if the driver you pick finishes ahead of the other 3 in the group, then you would win that wager. We start things off, and typically Group A is our 4 favorites: Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski. We've got group matchups with Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson, Martin Truex, and Ryan Blaney. Alex Bowman, William Byron, Denny Hamlin, and Jimmy Johnson. One group actually has 3 Hendrick Chevys pitted against each other with Denny Hamlin added into there. Group D will feature Kurt Busch, Eric Jones, Eric Almirola, Clint Bowyer. Group E has Austin Dillon, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Chris Buescher, Ross Chastain, who is in for Ryan Newman. And then Group F, Ty Dillon, John Hunter Nemechek, Bubba Wallace, and Ryan Preece. And again, you can go to racersodds.com to check all of these out, and we'll keep putting them up there for you as well. So, Steve, let me start with you when it comes to the groupings. I've kind of become a big fan of the groupings and trying to pick 1 over 4 other drivers. I don't know if that's going to be the best place to find money this week, but is there anything you see in here?
Well, this is actually going to be where I find my best bet from this week because I found in Group E, there's one particular driver. I talked about this earlier, Austin Dillon. I think he's very underrated in this particular one against Stenhouse, Buescher, and Chastain. Obviously, we just spoke about what of a start that Stenhouse is off to here. However, he was sort of lucky last week. Let's be honest about this. He timed things out, got a perfect caution after being on a different pit cycle as everybody. He didn't actually run that great of a race to finish 3rd place. So drivers can tend to get overrated in situations like that, coming off of great finishes that are unexpected from them when they didn't really earn that position on the track. Well, Austin Dillon has been good here, 11th, 10th, and 10th the last 3 races. He's in a Chevy. The 2 other guys in that besides Stenhouse are Buescher and Chastain, and Roush has really struggled here. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to even be competitive at Auto Club in the last few years. So I like Austin Dillon here. He's got some good momentum. He's 7th in the standings, coming off a 4th place finish last week, and I think he's a sleeper this week to get another top 10.
Interesting. All right, Hollywood Jeff, what do you think? When you look at the groupings, is there anything that jumps out at you, or are you a Penske Hendrick guy this week, or is there something else?
No, I think honestly, I might be a little bit more inclined to go one group lower and look at Austin's brother Ty. That car has been pretty good this year so far, and I'm looking at who he's racing against: John Hunter Nemechek, a rookie this year, Bubba Wallace, as well as Ryan Priest. So you're looking at a Ford and three Chevrolets in this group, and Ty Dillon may wind up being a guy that could come in here and beat this group right here, I think.
Curious question. Bubba Wallace, for example, 6th place finish at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. He had a decent day going as well. But a team with a budget that they're working with right now, can we expect them, especially on a West Coast swing, to go back-to-back with great finishes? Or typically, do you put your resources into one race when you have that kind of a budget, maybe sacrificing a couple other? See what I mean?
Yeah, but most of the teams won't try to do what you call sacrificing. They're going to bring the best that they can bring. But sometimes this is where you see being prepared and what you've been able to bring out here may rear its ugly head. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's so predictable that some of these guys who get this swing worked out, they do well for these 3 races when they come out west. Their preparation back in the shop was done correctly, and they don't have to go through a lot of anxiety once they get here and have to do the swap over from Las Vegas to California and back to Phoenix. That I think you'll notice there's a trend right here that the guys that run and qualify well, they perform well on all 3 of these tracks.
All right, Steve, back and then let's shift gears here a little bit and talk about a manufacturer odds to win. I almost look at this one and say to myself, hey, this could be great if you just want an easy way into wagering on NASCAR. Well, you're picking one of 3. Not too bad. Right now, Toyota sitting at plus 225, Chevrolet at plus 200, Ford's the most favored for this race at plus 140. What do you think?
Well, this is an interesting one, particularly at this track, the way we talked about Chevy doing well here. Now, there's a difference, though, when you're betting, making this bet here of winning and doing well. Which cars here are capable of winning? As far as I'm concerned, they're Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, the Penske guys. The only sleeper I may throw in there is Kyle Larson or something like that. He's the only Chevy I think has maybe the capability of winning this race. So I would probably knock Chevy out of there. You come down to Toyota and Ford, then it maybe simplifies your bet a little.
Well, can I throw something out there for you to think about? When you look at the last 5 to 10 years coming out here, you've got 4 wins by Toyota. You've got 5 wins by Chevrolet. You've only got 1 win by Ford.
Well, that's something to think about. Interesting.
I have Toyota atop my simulation, so I mean, if we're looking at that logic, I mean, I don't think you go wrong with a Kyle Busch or having a Martin Truex in your arsenal this week to win this race. So,
well, what I like about this what they've done here. If you feel like Toyotas are going to be up for the challenge, which is in their backyard, and they're going to bring their A game, you've got all those Toyotas. There's only 6 of them or 7 of them, and all one of them's got to do is win. Don't matter who it is. And they bring home the bacon.
Yeah, so that could be an interesting one to look for sure. All right, we're running a little bit short on time, so let's get to our picks of the week. Last week at Las Vegas, that last late race caution pretty much killed most of us, with the exception of, I believe, David actually won what his was, and, well, good for him. He had Kevin Harvick in group number A.
No, I didn't win. I lost by like 20 feet.
Oh, you lost it. Did we all lose, David?
No, Hammond actually won his bet.
Oh, maybe I was trying not to acknowledge that.
He only got about $80 off of that, so he's still at minus 20.
All right, so who's in the green there? Oh, wait, that's me.
You.
But I did lose. I was about 100 yards away from Ryan Blaney finishing ahead of Kyle Larson. And, of course, Steve with Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin, that looked like it was going to be a runaway for you until Chase Elliott had just the unfortunate thing of a valve stem getting knocked off. But as we move ahead to this week at Auto Club Speedway, these are our picks of the week. And crew chief Jeff Hammond, let's just go ahead and start with you. Who do you have?
I've been bragging about it ever since the start about how I felt like Ryan Blaney is going to be good this weekend. And I am going to stick with Ryan Blaney, and this time I'm going to put him over Kyle Larson. Even though Kyle's won here, I feel like right now it's his best opportunity to kind of showcase his momentum and everything else and turn the momentum on the Toyotas away and get forward back in the victory lane.
Steve, where was Kyle Larson on your list? Number 2, if I'm not mistaken?
Number 2.
Oh.
Number 2.
Yeah. Well, I lost that Blaney Larson bet last week. I'm just throwing that out there.
Don't scare me now.
Go ahead, Steve.
Whatever happened last week was hard to predict. Obviously, the fans of Las Vegas were treated to a great finish. That was a wild last couple laps there. But again, not real great for the better.
All right, I'll go ahead and jump in with mine. This week I'm going groups again. I will take Group D. Kurt Busch over Eric Jones, Eric Almirola, and Clint Boyer. I am going for the Chevy, and I'm going for a guy who has a track where he's been pretty good historically as well. I think he can be better than these guys. So Kurt Busch at plus 240 in Group D. Steve Makinen, how about you? What's your bet of the week?
Group E for me, Austin Dillon to take that group at plus 250. Been on a good run, 9th in my simulation. No one else is better than 18th. Stenhouse, a couple good runs so far, but that car, the 47 car, is just 20.7 average finish the last 3 years. I think Austin Dillon may be a bit underpriced here, and I'll take him at plus 250.
By the way, whenever you were talking about Austin earlier, especially his finishes, you almost changed my mind. I just want you to know that. So we'll see how that goes. And David Stiles behind the glass there, he is the man who is going to try and win some money here this week as well. How about it, David? Who you got?
I'm trying to stay around that 52 percentile for the odds. I'm taking Chase Elliott over Larson. I just feel like he's the best Chevy in that camp, and so I'm trying to stay within that Chevy group and bet a Chevy over a Chevy. So I'm taking Elliott over Larson.
Oh, man, Larson was number 2 again on Steve's list, so we'll see how it goes. Gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate your expertise as always. Jeff Hammond, Steve Makinen. Looking forward to the next one.